Imagine an empire at the absolute peak of its power. This was Rome in the middle of the 2nd century AD. It was a world of stability and unparalleled strength. The Roman Empire stretched from the misty shores of Britain to the sun-scorched deserts of Mesopotamia. Its cities were marvels of engineering, colossal amphitheaters, sprawling forums bustling with activity. The era of the 5 good emperors guided the state with a steady hand. Pax Romana had settled over the territories, allowing trade and culture to flourish. This golden age was personified by Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher king more at home with books than the sword. Under him, legions symbolized order and discipline. The economy boomed with goods from across the known world. Its network of roads, some still existing today, connected every corner. This interconnectedness was Rome's greatest strength, but that web of connections would become its greatest vulnerability. It would be an invisible killer, a microscopic invader traveling the empire's trade routes. This unseen foe would challenge Rome's foundations and bring the Golden Age to an abrupt close. The nightmare began not in Rome but far away on the eastern frontier. Under the command of co-emperor Lucius Verus, were campaigning against the Parthian Empire in Mesopotamia. After a successful campaign that saw them sack the great city of Seleucia on the Tigris in 165 AD, the soldiers began their long journey home. They brought with them something sinister and invisible. As they marched back across the empire, they unknowingly spread the pathogen. This was the beginning of the Antonine Plague. Most historians and scientists today believe it was a particularly virulent strain of smallpox. However, for the Romans, it was a complete mystery. To them, this was a divine punishment, a curse sent by displeased gods. The plague's arrival with the victorious army was a shocking irony. From its entry point in the east, it spread with terrifying speed. And finally, by 166 AD, it had reached the city of Rome itself. Its crowded apartment blocks, known as insulae, allowed the disease to pass with frightening ease. The famous physician Galen documented its effects but could offer no cure. The Romans tried everything they could think of, but nothing worked. The unseen invader was relentless, and it had just begun its deadly march across the Roman world. The accounts of what the Antonine Plague did to its victims are truly harrowing. The great physician Galen left behind chilling descriptions of its progression. The illness would often begin with a high fever, a sore throat, intense thirst that could not be quenched. Victims would feel exhaustion, a sign their bodies were being overwhelmed from within. After a few days, the plague's most terrifying feature would appear: a gruesome rash. Dark-colored pustules that would erupt all over the body, both inside and out. These sores would often become ulcerous and turn black, leaving disfiguring scars on those few who managed to survive. The internal pustules caused unimaginable pain, leading to severe diarrhea and vomiting, often containing blood. It was transmitted through airborne droplets, meaning a simple cough or sneeze from an infected person could doom those nearby. It could also be passed through contaminated materials like bedding and clothing. The public baths became death traps. Fear became as contagious as the disease itself. Family members abandoned their sick relatives for fear of catching the illness. Bodies piled up in the streets faster than they could be buried. For those living through it, it must have felt like the end of the world. The Antonine Plague didn't just kill people. It attacked the very fabric of Roman society. Shops were shuttered, marketplaces fell silent, farmers stopped bringing their produce to sell. This led to widespread food shortages and economic chaos. Fields left unplowed, building projects ceased. The Roman army, the backbone of the empire, was hit especially hard. Legions stationed in crowded forts became hotbeds for the plague's transmission. The disease ripped through the ranks, devastating the fighting force. Marcus Aurelius spent most of his reign on the front lines with a weakened army, recruiting gladiators, freed slaves, Germanic mercenaries. Even the emperor himself was not immune to the plague's reach. His co-emperor Lucius Verus died in 169 AD, likely from the plague. Marcus Aurelius faced the crisis with stoic resolve, as documented in the Meditations. The traditional Roman gods seemed powerless, leading to a crisis of faith. Christianity offered comfort to the bereaved. Christian communities cared for their own sick and even for their pagan neighbors. While the plague didn't make the empire Christian, it created an environment where new beliefs could take root and grow. Trying to calculate the exact number of deaths from an ancient plague is incredibly difficult, but the estimates are staggering. Modern historians believe the Antonine Plague killed 7 to 10 million across the Roman Empire. In some areas, the death rate may have been as high as 25 to 35%. This means that in some towns, 1 out of every 3 or 4 people perished. Cassius Dio, at the height of a second outbreak around 189 AD, said Rome suffered 2,000 deaths a day. He paints a city overwhelmed by corpses constantly rumbling through the streets for mass burial or cremation. It wasn't just the poor. The plague was indiscriminate. The physician Galen's clinical descriptions reveal shock at the disease's virulence. Marcus Aurelius reflects on the fleeting nature of life, entire cities swept away. This catastrophic loss had severe consequences for the Roman state. The tax base shrank dramatically, agricultural land abandoned, the economy contracted. The post-plague empire was a shadow of its former self, a wound the empire bled from for a long time. The Antonine Plague was more than just a temporary crisis, it was a major turning point in Roman history. Many historians argue it marked the beginning of the end of the Pax Romana, and set the stage for the crisis of the 3rd century. The empire that survived was fundamentally weakened. The desperate need for soldiers forced recruitment of non-Romans, changing the character of the legions. Emperors devalued currency to pay bills, triggering inflation that spiraled in later decades. Economic instability, weakened military and political infighting combined into a perfect storm. The trauma shook public confidence in Roman traditions. There was a rise in Christianity, offering spiritual solace and a strong sense of community the state religion couldn't match. The pandemic helped pave the way for the Christianization of Rome. It shows how vulnerable even mighty civilizations are to disease. An interconnected world can also spread a pandemic rapidly. The Antonine Plague draws shocking parallels to modern global health crises. History is shaped not just by battles and leaders, but by invisible forces of nature. A tiny virus can shake society's foundations to their core.